Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Disrupt Your Now with me, your host, Lisa Kipps-Brown. And tonight we have an exciting guest, Tom DiDonato, who is a director and producer. And you can correct me in a minute if I'm wrong, if I'm telling it wrong, Tom. But he used to be in basically journalism and news and reporting. And he's moved into owning his own business. And now he produces really cool documentaries. But he also has corporate clients. So, Tom, I want you to tell the audience more about your background and how you got to where you are. And then I want to talk about your awesome film Pivot and some of the corporate clients, how you go about getting them.
Okay, definitely, definitely.
Mhm.
So I've been in the business for quite some time, as you can see the gray in my beard here. But
I think
and
I'm older than you, so that's fine.
no, I don't think so. No. Uh, so I after being in sports and news for quite some time, um, so a friend of mine said, you should really try documentaries and do positive stories, and because the world needs it right now.
Mhm.
It's gotten so negative in the last couple of years, especially with the pandemic and other things that were going on in our country, especially. And so I said,
Oh, I just lost you.
all right, go ahead.
Okay, good. Okay, so I heard the last thing I heard was you said, okay, I'll do it.
Oh, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. And so there was a friend of mine that just said, you got to try this. You haven't been able to do this for a long time because financially it's quite an investment to make a film, a documentary. It is expensive. And ironically, I was with this news job covering these negative stories,
Mm.
and they closed down the show during the pandemic. And I took the severance money I had, and I decided to go out and do my first film.
Okay.
And so I found a old friend of mine who directed some other films before, and we just started running around and shooting these stories. And we started out with business businesses that just did the pivot during the pandemic. And during some of these interviews, some of these people started like restaurant owners giving meals to frontline workers, and it was like this feel good stuff. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, let's pivot to a paying it forward type of angle on the movie. And just one story led to the other. Sometimes we go and shoot one story and we hear about another up there, like up in Vermont with a little boy who shot black and white photos during the pandemic of graduations, of military send-offs, things like that. And there we go. We had about 8 stories in the film, and it's been submitted to over 150 film festivals around the world. It's been accepted to about 100 of them in
Wow.
countries you cannot imagine, like Ukraine and some of these countries in the Himalayas I've never heard of before.
Mm.
Indonesia, Brazil, in France. There's like 4 or 5 festivals in those countries that are really connected to this film. I don't
Wow.
know what's going on in those countries and why they want to see Americans helping others so badly. But I know that, like, for example, in Brazil, they're not happy with the government right now and their
Yeah.
handling of the pandemic. And in France, in Europe, the pandemic was very bad, and they just needed something uplifting to get them through this time. And I guess
Mhm.
this film has been that solution.
Yeah, I think people all over the world, even though we're in different countries and our problems are not exactly the same, I think we're all kind of in the same boat with the pandemic because people are losing people or they have friends and family who are sick, but also there's just the constant negativity around us of how to handle it and turn in, the pandemic itself becoming political and then social media, people sniping at each other all the time about anything, regardless of how little or big it is. And so I do think that people just love to have a breath of fresh air, and that breath of fresh air is Pivot. I can say I watched it last week when Andy, our friend that introduced us, I watched it when he shared the post about you, and I loved it. It was so good. I shared it with some others in my family, and I'm going to go back and watch it again. Tell them about the banana pudding guy without messing, without ruining the film. But I just love this story.
Well, there's a pastor in Brooklyn, New York, who has a cute small church in the center of Brooklyn. And I guess he has a lot of members that go to the church that are senior citizens. And the whole virtual thing wasn't working for him, right?
Yeah.
So he was losing a lot of people, a lot of donations. And he said, well, how can I pay the electric bills in the church? And he has this really good banana pudding recipe. He decided to make it in the church and sell it to the local restaurants in the area to help pay some of the electric bills during the time of the pandemic. And it's just his personality. He also sings and plays music. And, you know, I put some of that in there just to feel his spirit. And it was just one of those stories that makes you feel good. And just helping others during a crisis, a critical time. How can you just, instead of just sitting there during the pandemic, no offense, I know people were scared.
Yeah.
He went out to do something, you know, and make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like this film when it was made by my partner Rob Hunkley and myself. I didn't even realize there was a pandemic until 8 months in after we got the film done, because we were so involved in this uplifting film. Once we submitted it, then I'm like, oh my gosh, we're in a pandemic right now.
So you mean you literally didn't realize it, or you were just so busy that it wasn't affecting your life?
That's right. And it was exciting. I mean, I shouldn't say this during a pandemic, but to do your first documentary during an important time in history.
Yeah.
And as you recall, I mean, well, the Spanish flu or whatever happened in the early 20s, you know, it was all radio reporting. And with social media, as you mentioned, it can get really negative. And you had not only the pandemic, you had the George Floyd protests, you had BLM protests going on at the same time. And understandably, I understood why they were going on.
Yeah.
But it's a lot to comprehend at the same time. And I was talking to my old managing editor in my previous news job, and we were trying to compare it to 9/11, which was more negative. And at least 9/11, it was done in 4 months. As far as it was more tragic, obviously, but it didn't last 18 months. So we're still in the pandemic now. And I think, you know, you could see the economical impact of the pandemic and what it's done with businesses and everything else. So it's nice. I mean, some countries like Indonesia have reached out to me and they said, thank you for getting us through the pandemic.
Aw, that's so cool. The reason I love the banana pudding story so much is, well, first of all, I love banana pudding, so I need to buy some of his. But he did.
Really
he had
really good
personality. And well, as you can tell from the name of my show, Disrupt Your Now, and I also just released a book this summer called Disrupt Your Now. I'm all about figuring out something different to do. You know, instead of saying someday or one day, do it right now. And so I just love, because what he did has nothing obvious to do with the church. You know, most people, when they're thinking about what they can do to make a difference, they think within the same lane that they've always been in. And that's why I just love that he's like, oh, what can I do? Banana pudding, you know, and it's just such a cool story. And I need to get him on the show too. And then the little boy, I just feel like people are longing for something happy to watch. And anything to hear, to watch. You mentioned the Spanish flu, and my family, very small family cemetery in the mountains of Virginia, there are these two tiny little graves of sisters side by side. They were just several years old. One died, like I'm gonna say, in the spring, and one died in the fall. And of course, and I have not huge history, whatever. And my mom, I used to ask her, I'm like, I don't get it. Why'd they die 6 months apart? Because, you think of people getting sick. And she would say, oh, well, there were these waves of it. And now I get it. When I was younger, I didn't get it because we'd never had to deal with anything like that.
I guess now we know.
Yeah, definitely.
How bad it was and how many cycles this thing goes through. And it's kind of like this film, you think you submit it and then it's done with, for that small time period. But because the pandemic has gone so long, different places in the world have reached out to me to submit the film because they're in cycles of the of bad times over there. And like in India this week, it made it to, it won 2 or 3 awards in India, in Calcutta and Bengali. Excuse my
Wow.
pronunciation.
Mhm.
And I'm excited, that people can be inspired by this. There's a small a village 12 miles south of the DMZ in South Korea. It's just a small, tiny village. I am grateful that it made it to a small village like that as much as a big city like Paris,
Yeah.
because you want to get to everybody, or some of the people that would never even see this film.
Mhm.
It's very
So
exciting.
do most of them just run across it online, or how like the village in Korea, how did they find out about it?
Um, well, there's a website called filmfreeway.com, and that's where you submit the film, and then you have to dig money out of your own pocket to submit to a lot of these festivals.
Yeah.
So that's my pay it forward, is that I think I spent about $10,000 just promoting the film
Okay.
to these various festivals.
So that little town in Korea, it is a film festival affiliate or in that town?
Yes.
The other thing about your film that I love so much is it shows that we all have so much more in common than we have differences in. And I love that that's what you focus on, because all day, every day, whether it's on TV, the radio, social media, whatever, all they do is wah, 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 everybody fighting and complaining.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
gets so old.
a lot of people on the ground when I was shooting this film, because we were all boxed in our homes, right? But then when you get out there and you talk to people,
Yeah.
they're telling me that they can only watch the news for about 2 minutes and then turn their head away. It was so
Mhm.
depressing. And I
Yeah.
think I remember a few of the newscasts with like pandemic death numbers on the right, and it was just for the full 30 minutes. And
Yeah.
it's not healthy, right?
It
So,
isn't.
and so that's why I went crazy just getting this film out to people, to countries, even in this country, New York, Los Angeles, just all around the country if I could. Um, and a lot of the smaller festivals really have enjoyed this film. Some of the big festivals, which I mean, Garden State Film Festival is probably my biggest film festival in this country,
Mhm.
because I have quite a few New Jersey stories in there from being from
Yeah.
New Jersey. There's about 3 or 4 of them. And that was our first day going out to shoot and finding the right New Jersey profile. We have Master Chef David Burke in there. He was an
Mhm.
Iron Chef finalist. He donated about 100,000 meals to frontline workers.
Yeah.
And that's where my pivot came, when I heard that story in that soundbite. And then we just found some other people doing the same thing. And yeah, I mean, that's it. It just it's been a great experience. And I think there still needs to be a change in positivity in this world.
Yeah.
And we need to counter it with segments, these interviews that we're doing now, and give people hope. And on my Facebook page, I put up all these inspirational quotes,
Mhm.
and
Tell them your Facebook page. How do they find it?
it's at well, there's Pivot Paying It Forward, at Pivot Paying It Forward,
Okay.
and that's a page connected to my Tom DiDonato profile on Facebook.
Okay.
And I also have Instagram and LinkedIn, as we connected, and Twitter.
Mhm.
I haven't hit the TikTok world yet, but my cousin is trying to get me to do a
Oh,
TikTok.
yeah, I think that you have such awesome stories. I think that people would love it on there. And then I actually found the film on YouTube. I think I just went on YouTube and searched for it, I think.
Yeah, Kids First, which is one of the film
Oh,
festivals.
actually, that might have been where I found the link. I think it was.
Yeah, so there's a children's film festival in New Mexico called Kids First, and that was like my first like glaring positive review. Some student gave me this 6-paragraph review that I brought tears to my eyes. I mean,
Oh.
it was like wow. I mean, finally all this work is paid off, because you don't
Mhm.
realize how hard it is to put a short film or doc together. It takes a lot of work, a lot of time. Some
Yeah.
people shoot these things for 4 years, and
Yeah,
we
I
did.
have a friend who's been shooting for probably 4 years now on a book based on based on a book about World War II. It's a film based on a real story, but anyway. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
the producer, and so, but hers is a full length film. But even what you're doing, I mean, shoot, even to do a short video online, once you know, do a little 4 or 5 minute video,
yeah,
and you're like me, and you don't even know what the heck you're doing. So if it's a professional like you, y'all have a lot more work to do with the editing and production.
yeah. There was a lot of plus, I mean, it's a lot of pressure because
Yeah.
you're not working, you just lost your job, right? And you want to
Mhm.
make a mark and make sure it's good enough
Yeah.
so you could do more of these. And so this Kids First Film Festival called me back 6 months later, and they said, "Well, we have a YouTube channel. We could get this to 1 billion children around the world." And I'm like,
Oh.
"Okay, I know YouTube. I mean, anybody can watch YouTube, but yeah, that meant a lot to me because I just wanted to help the next generation. You
Yeah.
know, I wanted to give them hope. From age, from the millennials to the new kids that are in grammar school, the kids that miss kindergarten. Well,
Yeah.
actually, age 8 to 18, it was identified as so second or third grade on, because they were stuck at home zooming with their classrooms, right?
Mhm.
So you can get easily depressed and disappointed.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I just found out there's a festival in New York called the Newsomatic Film Festival, where this film is going to be shared with 600,000 students in New York City.
Oh, cool.
So I'm just excited that I can help. It's more about help and hope,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not trying to change the world. I'm just trying to give them a tool so they can change the world.
Right. Yeah. I cannot imagine being a child now. My husband and I were talking about this the other day because even before the pandemic, well, you know, there's all the war stuff that's been going on for so long, all the political stuff, but then just having social media in your life, the pressure. I mean, I've always laughed and been like, thank God we didn't have cell phones with cameras when I was in high school and college. But now you think about, God, I just can't even imagine the peer pressure and everything that they go through. And then now not being able to go to school, not being able to be around people, or when they are, they have their mask on, and you lose a lot of that communication.
Yes.
All of it combined, it's so hard.
Yes. So I have one daughter in college, and I have one daughter that's in middle school now. And all last year she wore the mask in school, and then she's wearing a mask now. And you wonder, you're right, what kind of psychological effect and will they have down the road. So as you know, the interaction is so important,
Yeah.
and then the readjustment to be acclimated with kids again, after being
Mhm.
isolated from them. So a lot
Yeah.
of adjustments are being made, and so hopefully, they get to watch this film and say, people can help others and get along. And just one act of kindness. There's one person in the film who said that, just making cookies for a neighbor or a school nurse, just
Mhm.
that little act of kindness can change your outlook during a really
Yeah.
bad time,
Yeah, and it helps you. You feel better when you help somebody, and then they feel better, and it encourages them to go help people, and it increases people feeling better exponentially. It's one of those things that 1 plus 1 is way more than two.
Yeah, I was looking up research on that and seeing, have they done studies on it. I know there was one at the University of Pennsylvania in 2012 by a professor, to link that. And I mean, that was like, there's not a lot of research actually done on it to prove
Mhm.
it. But I think if you watch a lot of films like this, I think it would change the way people think and approach
Yeah,
life.
I think it would be cool to have a series. You
Yes,
know? Um, you probably have a ton of stories that you have found out since you actually produced the film that you have in the wing that if you had the funding, you could do the next pivot film, right?
definitely. And that's what I do every day. Every morning, I post about 5 potential pivot stories on my Facebook
Uh,
that I think would make people feel good, at least by
mhm.
reading it or influence others to help others.
And you could turn it into a book. Your experience, you know, combine it with good stories combined with what you learned about life and everything. I think it'd be really interesting.
Yes, yes. I mean, there's a lot of great stories out there. Everybody's involved in a good story.
Yeah.
Yourself for doing this, giving people exposure to talk about positive things, make changes.
Mhm.
And I think what you do is fantastic, and it opens the eyes of people. They want to hear positive, inspirational stories and how it can change people's lives for the better.
Yeah.
And I think being a former news member, it there has to be a lesson learned about what happened in the last couple of years.
Mhm.
And there's people like us that have to fight the system and make it better, and
Yeah.
keep on getting those inspirational stories out there. Even if you read something, post it. Um, or, if you do something positive yourself, take a picture of yourself doing it and post it,
Mhm. Yeah.
and just get it out there. I'm
Well,
not asking.
just yesterday, I live in a very small town, 1,000 people, but I had this knock at my door. Nobody ever comes to our house because we don't have neighbors right at us. There's this woman with this huge German Shepherd that she had found out walking the road. She didn't have a leash, but she's a huge animal lover. So I went out and got a video of her and I put it on Facebook. And then she went up in town walking door to door with this huge German Shepherd. Like I said, no leash. She had her finger through the ring. And just that little thing made me feel so good because she could have been like, somebody will find him. And then he could have gotten run over or lost or stolen. So there are good stories everywhere, but I think most people get in that rut that it's easier to look at the bad things and it gets you more charged up to think about the bad things than you get your adrenaline going rather than, happy things don't get that adrenaline going. It's like people just get addicted to negative things.
Yeah, it's like driving on a highway and you see an accident on the other side of the road, and you
Mhm.
want to look at it, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's a negative experience. It's human nature.
Yeah.
So why not do the opposite? When what's happened to me now is every time I see something positive,
Mhm.
I want to make sure that positive thing gets the attention it deserves.
Right.
I can't
Yeah.
explain it, but it's changed my whole thought process. When I'm in the city in New York and I walk through Times Square, and New York City is an interesting place, and there's been a lot of homeless people living out on the streets. I've noticed in the last few months, and but then Times Square is vibrant, and there's a lot of positive imagery you see in there, especially for the holidays coming up.
Mhm.
And I'll take pictures of it and I'll post it just to, that we're coming back. The Macy's Day Parade was happening, right?
Mhm.
So the windows at Macy's, where they have all those figures moving around, animated figures, for the
Yeah.
holidays. I take video or photo and post it to say, hey, New York is coming back. They're
Coming back to life. And then, like, is it Rockefeller Center that has the ice skating?
the ice skating and the
Are
Christmas
they out
tree.
doing that now?
Yes, that has ice skating. Bryant Park, which is at 42nd Street, has ice skating. So I showed a
Mhm.
picture of the ice rink there. It's free admission.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Central Park has ice skating. I try to take a picture of a sunrise every morning,
Aw.
with the skyline in New York,
Mhm.
and say it's time to make a positive pivot.
So, are you in the city every day, or you mean just whenever you're there, you try to take a sunrise photo there?
I'm in the city every day,
Okay.
because so what I noticed with the film. Okay, so the film has done great in the festival world.
Mhm.
Um, I have some distribution things going on with a documentary channel in Canada, and then Vimeo on demand, but it's going to take a while before money comes back to me.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I have to work to support the next film.
Yeah. So, when you're working, is it for corporate clients through your business, or are you talking like gig work for companies, or what?
Uh, right now, it's I studied weather in college, so I took a weather job
Cool.
just to help pay the bills right now.
That's cool though. So, are you like reporting on the weather, or are you like the weatherman up there in front of the green screen?
I always wanted to be a weatherman, but no, I'm behind the scenes, in
Oh, okay.
production,
Okay.
doing some live streaming stuff in New
Yeah.
York. But
It's interesting though, still,
but I'm hopeful that um, I can get the next film rolling. And our mutual friend Andy Grider, is trying to get the word out, get people to fund, hopefully, or find a sponsor to find more of these great stories in the country. So
Yeah.
and
Andy's awesome too, and he knows so many people. And I have some people in mind that I'm going to reach out to, and I don't know if they can do anything right now, but they might be able to later if they can't right now. My friend Kimley is at, and she said, I love this. I'll put a link, Kimley, I'll put a link in the comments so that you can go right to it. You don't have to go look to it. I mean, you don't have to go look for it. How long? I've had you almost 30 minutes, and I know I told you that I would have you for about 30. But so I wanted to ask you real quick. So I know you own the business that's doing these films. Are you working with any corporate clients now, or is your business only these documentaries and the other income is from the job? I'm just trying to help other entrepreneurs who are in transition learn from people like you.
This is interesting because what I would like to do, because I was in this situation, my career, I never really had the money to invest to make a short film or a documentary.
Yeah.
Until finally at this point in my life, a lot of filmmakers start in their, they could be in grammar school or high school to do their first doc, but you have to have the financial backing. And so what I'd like to do is with this project is sort of foundation where first-time filmmakers can get, a stipend to start their project.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah, but these are dreams,
Yeah, but still, you got to have the dream to take the first step towards the dream.
Yes. So, so they have that chance, especially a creative person that wants to do something, an awareness project. But the deal is, it's got to be a positive storyline.
Yeah.
I don't want to see anything negative out there. I want the money to back up something positive to get out there.
Yeah. Well, I think I've been in web and marketing strategy for 25 years now and an entrepreneur for over 30. The biggest problem that I see with a lot of nonprofits is that they're all going after the same pots of money. They all are like, we are a nonprofit. This is how we operate, and they don't think creatively like entrepreneurs have to. So I think if you can think of ways to go after different buckets, because my thing is, that's why I'm so into cause marketing, because cause marketing is a way that companies can support projects or whatever, but get some kind of return on investment. And that's not because they're greedy, but they have to have money coming in. And if you as a nonprofit can figure out a way to help your supporters get an ROI, then when they need to make budget cuts, people that it's just a donation, they're going to be the ones that are first to be cut. But things that do deliver an ROI are going to be able to hang on longer because it's actually part of their business plan. So I think that's one thing for you to keep in mind. And we can talk about it sometime. I have somebody that I want to introduce you to, also just a friend. And, so that we can just maybe put our brains together, but just to keep that in mind.
Definitely. And this is so promotional, this film, for these businesses. I mean, positive publicity, helping others, and it would rally the community around your business. It would rally, potential sponsors, like you're saying. So it's like it's an infomercial for all these people,
right?
It's showing their goodness.
Yeah, I love it. So tell people again how they can find you, how they can contact you if perchance they may know someone who may be interested in sponsoring. And then I'll share in the comments the link to the film on YouTube also.
So my website is didoproductions.com. Pivot Paying Forward is on YouTube on the Kids First Film Festival under the Planet Classroom subtitle. And those are two ways you can reach me. Also on Facebook, Instagram, Dido Pro LLC, and I'll answer back. I try to answer everybody's message back if I can, and we'll start communicating and sharing ideas.
Okay, and y'all make sure you don't just look for Pivot Film. look for Pivot Paying It Forward, because
Yes.
there's a different film out there. And I don't want y'all to look at the wrong one.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
Tom, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And if Andy's watching, Andy, thank you for introducing us. I've really enjoyed talking with you, and I can't wait to go watch it again, because it
Thanks
made
so
me so happy when I watched it the first time.
Community, hope, and kindness. That's the key.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Talk with you later, and see everybody next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.